Hey everyone, welcome to week 2 of our devotional series, Rest for the Weary Soul. I'm glad that you can be here today. Welcome if this is your first time joining us, and hello again if you are joining us from last week. I know there were a few people that said they hope that they could make it to the live one this week, so hopefully you're able to make it. If not, thankfully, we still have this recording going for you. It should be on Facebook for about 2 weeks, and then it will be forever on YouTube as well. So, for those of you who don't know, this series came about from a time of healing, and it helped me heal some things that I was struggling with at the time, and I really hope that this will also provide that for you as well. So we'll give it just a little bit longer to see if we have some more people that are able to join. And while we do that, I just wanted to let you know that the plan for me is to go through this lesson and then we'll ask some questions. And if you feel like you want to answer it, you can throw it in the chat. And hopefully all goes well with the chat and I can see them and talk about them or respond to them. If you don't want to do it on live, you can also do it later and I can respond to you later as well. And then we are also at the end of the 6-week series, we are going to have this whole devotional series be available for you on joshandmandaministries.org. And then we will also have it available by paperback book too, if you would like to get copies for your church and have the women in your church do this as well. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to go with an introduction here for those who may not have been with us last week to kind of let you know what we're doing while we're going. So we have Rest for the Weary Soul. And the first thing we will be going over is the soil. The soil part is the heart of what we're learning. It's where I'm transparent with you and where we connect and you feel seen and understood and safe. Then after we go through the soil portion, we will go over to the roots. And the roots is the truth that goes deeper. Where God meets you, this is where you begin to feel grounded. Then after we are done with the roots, we have the branch. And the branch is the connection and growth area where truth starts changing something. It focuses on how your life connects to God's truth. It gives you a shift in perspective or understanding. And it helps you in the letting go, trusting, or surrendering portion. And this is where something gently begins to grow. And then the last one, after we have the soil and after we have the roots and the branch, our last one is the leaves. And this is the living it out, where rest becomes real and practical. It includes our planting the seed section with a small mindset or heart shift. It also is practice. So I will be giving you simple, doable action steps that you can practice until we meet again. And I'm hoping it's something where you can walk away with something that you can hold on to. So we have our week 2, and this week our topic is the burden of always being strong. And our main scripture that we're going to be focusing on today is from Galatians 6:2-5. So for the soil, when I was younger, I was so terrified of storms, especially since my bedroom was on the top floor and our basement was old and dirty and small and unfinished, like a lot of basements really are. But it was not somewhere you wanted to go until the last minute. When I did have to go down there during a bad storm, I took the things that I felt were most important to me. And with me at that age would typically consist of my blanket, my pillow, my stuffed animal, and not just any stuffed animal, but every stuffed animal imaginable that I could take down with me. I would throw them in my blanket, fold up the blanket, and then just drag it down to the basement with me. But then there was also the task of carrying everything back upstairs too, whenever it had passed. But over the years, I grew up and I got married and had a family. And wouldn't you know it, I had a daughter who was absolutely terrified of storms as well. And as soon as she was old enough to climb out of bed, we knew that whenever a storm came, she would be there with us. And she would just climb into bed and stay there for the rest of the night. And then if the storm continued on until the next morning, she wouldn't really have to be every step in place with us, but she would typically follow us room to room, and she did not, want to be away from us. But as long as she was in the same space, that's what she needed. And so while she was in that space, um, my husband always had this saying, or has this saying that he talks about when we discuss this, and it's something where it's not that anything with the storm itself changed, but what changed was simply knowing where her parents were, and that her parents were there for her and just right there by her side. Um, and I myself did not suddenly start liking storms. I could not let her see my fears, how I felt. And I had to stay calm, and I could not show it on my face or talk about how dangerous they were. So I learned to push it down, and I learned to carry it quietly because I had believed that I needed to be strong. And over the years, I worked on my own fears, and the Lord helped me work through things. But how many times have we done that ourselves in more aspects than just a storm? Somewhere along the way, we started carrying everything all the time, and we end up with this load that is just on our lives. So, one of the things I want to talk about is how we try to carry these things on our own. And I could see now that something deeper was taking shape in me whenever I was going through all that stuff. I thought I was just learning how to be calm, but what I was really learning um, during those times was how to carry those things on my own. And I learned how to hold in fear, not how to deal with it. And I tried to stay steady and make sure that everything around me felt secure. But over time, it that did not stay in one moment. It became a pattern because when you get into that aspect of continuing to try and push everything down and to just carry it all on your own, you tend to kind of pick that up with other areas of your life as well. And so now, what I want us to go over for today is a primary passage from Galatians 6:2-5. It says, "Carry each other's burdens, and in this way you will fulfill the law of Christ. If anyone thinks they are something when they are not, they deceive themselves. Each one should test their own actions, then they can take pride in themselves alone, without comparing themselves to someone else. For each one should carry their own load." That was Galatians 6:2-5. And now I want to go over our series passage for our Rest for the Weary Soul series. It's from Matthew 11, verses 28-29. Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. So maybe you have felt that too. You become the one person that people rely on, the one who keeps things together, the one who steps in when something needs done. And at first, it feels right. It feels responsible. It feels like strength. And we begin to feel like if we don't hold it all together, then no one else will. But let me ask you a question. Have you actually let anyone else try? The scripture shows us something important. Is that there's a difference between a burden and a load. So it's also a warning about how we see ourselves when we carry too much. So Paul says that when we think we are something on our own, we begin to deceive ourselves. When everything depends on us, it can slowly create the belief that we are the one holding it all together. That belief keeps us from letting go. It keeps us from letting God or others help share our burden. And he then reminds us to examine our own actions instead of comparing ourselves to others. And comparison often fuels this cycle. And we look at what others are doing, what others are carrying, and we take on more to measure up or to keep up. However, everyone's walk is different. Some may have been in the same place you are, but since has passed that point, which could then cause you to maybe look at someone else's life and think, man, they have it easy. They aren't having to go through all this stuff, but you don't know what their walk is. Maybe they have already experienced what you've gone through, maybe even something more, and they have just overcome that step in their walk. And so others may appear like they're holding it together, but they are not. Not saying that everyone is not holding it together. It's just when you're in the storm of your life, where all your burden and your load come and meet, is it can feel like you have all this mess going on around you, and it becomes very easy to compare yourself to others. But Paul brings clarity, though, which is each person should carry their own load. That means there are things that are yours to carry, but not everything is yours. There's a difference between a burden and a load. So a burden is something heavy, something meant to be shared. It is the kind of weight that no one is meant to carry alone. And then we have a load, on the other hand, that is something personal, something each of us is responsible for and meant to be carried alone. But God never asks us to carry everything. He asks us to carry what is ours and to share what is too heavy. The problem comes when those lines begin to blur. And when we start taking on what is not ours, it is, sorry. The problem when we start taking on what's not ours to carry, or it's meant to be shared, or when we silently take responsibility for everything around us, the weight grows quickly. And at first, it may not feel overwhelming, but over time, it builds. And you can carry one thing, then another, until you're holding more than you were ever meant to hold. And just like in my storm, you can keep carrying it because you believe you have to be strong. But that kind of strength comes at a cost. When you carry what was never meant for you, it wears on you. It drains you in all aspects of your life. And if it continues long enough, it begins to shape how you live and how you see yourself. You begin to believe that everything depends on you, that if you let something go, it will fall apart. That being strong means never putting anything down, but that is not the strength God calls us to. God does not ask you to carry everything. He invites you to share the burdens and to trust Him with what is not yours to hold. And as you consider this, I want you to take a moment to pause and reflect. And I want you to think about a few things here. Is where have those lines begun to blur for you? What are you carrying right now that may not be yours to carry? And where have you taken on responsibility that God never asked you to hold? I know that we tend to blur the lines a lot, and it's easy to do, especially if you're in that point where you always feel like the burden falls on you, that the load is yours to take, because burden means sharing it with others. Load is personal. So you need to just try and start working from the place of the load to the burden, and let others and let God help get you through those times. We're going to move on to the branch. And you were never meant to carry everything. There is a difference between responsibility and over responsibility. Responsibility is what God has placed in your hands. Over responsibility is what you have picked up along the way, often without even realizing it. It grows quietly, adding weight little by little until you are carrying far more than you were ever meant to hold. Being the strong one can feel like a good thing. It looks dependable, it looks capable, it looks like love, but over time, it can become something else. It can become the reason you never ask for help, the reason you keep saying yes, and the reason you feel like everything will fall apart if you stop. But real strength is not found in how much you can carry. It is found in knowing what is yours to carry and what is not. And God never asked you to be everything for everyone. I think over time that's just kind of something that we tend to place on us, especially in our lives. We tend to pick up the nurturing role, and so we want to be that help and that support and that encouragement for everyone. So we just keep picking up and picking up and picking up. And we feel like, if we were to stop that, then everything would fall apart, which makes it less likely for us to be able to allow others to try to help us, and to allow God to help us in those areas, because we feel like we just need to keep doing, we need to keep doing, we need to keep going, we need to keep going. Don't give up, don't stop. But have you ever really stopped to think, maybe this is not all me. Maybe I need to say no to some. It's really hard to say no to some things, especially when you know that people rely on you, especially when they're used to you being the one to say yes. But if you're going to stop carrying the load that you weren't meant to carry, and you don't start allowing it to become a burden to where others can help you carry that, you're going to become overwhelmed in many aspects of your life. And when we take what is not ours, we are not becoming stronger. We are becoming more burdened, and then the burden becomes the load. And this is where surrender becomes strength. So surrender does not mean neglecting your responsibilities. It means realizing what was never yours in the first place and releasing it. It means trusting that God is not. It means trusting that God is at work even when you are not holding everything together. When you begin to let go of what is not yours, something shifts. And the pressure begins to lift, the constant weight begins to ease. You still care, you still show up, and you still carry what is yours, but you are no longer trying to carry it all. And in that place, rest starts to return. Not because everything around you has changed, but because you are no longer trying to do what only God can do. So let's take a moment to pause and reflect on what we have seen in this study. Being the strong one can slowly turn into carrying more than you were meant to carry. And there is a difference between a burden and a load. Remember, a burden is something that you share, that you allow others to help you with, that you allow God to help you with. A load is personal and something that is yours to carry. So God calls us to share burdens, not carry everything alone. And over carrying leads to exhaustion physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And real strength is found in surrender, not in holding everything together. I know that's going to be hard for a lot of us, is to find the strength to surrender those things and not feel like you have to hold everything together. So our planting the seeds, and what I would like us to really think on is where in your life you feel like everything depends on you. I know for me, probably some things in my life would just be the care of my children and making sure that they have everything that they need. And I'm sure that's probably a lot of your feelings of responsibility as well, is maybe not even just that, but just all these other different aspects. So it's just caring for the children. It's doing so for my instance, it's children's church and leading songs, and there are just a lot of things that we feel like depend on us. So our next thing is, what are you currently carrying that may not be yours to carry? So what is it that you are finding a hard time to let go of? Some things that you've been holding on to for so long that God is trying to tell you this is not yours to carry. Or that He's trying to tell you to share that with Him so He can help lead you through it. Because if you keep going, and you're not praying about it, you're not doing your devotions, and you're not really trying to let God move in your life to show you what you are not meant to carry and to help you with those burdens, you're going to continually be grasping onto those things that you do not need to be carrying on your own. Then the other thing is, when do you find it hardest to ask for help or let something go? I know for myself, I have um, a hard time asking for help when I feel like it's something that I should be doing, and when I feel like it's something that um, is just all on me, or I feel even on the good stuff, when there are things that I can do and I can do it well, but I put so much on myself that I don't allow others to help me in that area. And I begin to feel the weight of that because I need to stop and think about those actions sometimes and realize that there are others out there who are willing to help and can do a good job to help me in this area. And so I think sometimes we'll hold on to some of those things, especially hard if it's something that we really enjoy doing and we really feel good at doing. But when we take on too much and it's something that we have to do and we really could use some help on it, we really just don't want to let that go. I think that can be a place where we find it hard to ask for help and to let go of some of those things. Now, what is one area where God may be inviting you to trust Him instead of carrying it alone? And that's something that I want you to think about over the week, is to really think about what that might be. So our life application is, this week I want you to begin by noticing what you are carrying throughout your day. Pay attention to what feels heavy, not just physically, but emotionally and mentally as well. I also want you to choose one thing that is not yours to carry and intentionally release it. This may look like asking for help, setting a boundary, or choosing not to take responsibility for something that is not yours. So take time each day to bring what you are carrying to God in prayer. And instead of holding it in, place it before Him and allow Him to carry what you cannot. I also want to leave you with a truth to carry, that I do not have to carry everything, and God is my strength. So today, what I would like to do is I'm going to close in prayer, and then we will end our devotional. I really hope that this has helped you in all your burdens and your loads that you've been carrying, and hopefully it's helped you place some perspective on when you hold on for too long the things that you aren't meant to hold on to, or you're not sharing your burden with God or with those around you that can help you in this time. And remember to find strength in the surrender. Lord, help us as we go throughout our week. Help us to remember that you are there for us whenever things seem heavy. You are there to help us through. And please help us to remember to reach out to those around us as well, those that you have placed in our lives, to also be someone who can help relieve us of those heavy things in our lives. I pray that you would please help us to think on and reflect on what we've learned here today, and help us to intentionally release the things that we don't need to put onto ourselves. And I pray that you would just watch over us and keep us safe throughout the week. We love you. Amen. And I will see you all next week. Bye.